At the year 22 BBY, the Galactic Republic, once the center of peace and prosperity in the Star Wars galaxy, found itself plunging into one of the greatest conflicts in history, the Clone Wars. The Republic had no standing army, and had relied on small judicial forces and the peacekeeping Jedi Order for generations. But in secret, Jedi Master Sifo Dyas had ordered the creation of a clone army on the world Kamino as part of a larger scheme ran by Darth Sidious. The Kaminoans were the best cloners in the galaxy, and used the DNA of one of the greatest bounty hunters in history, Jango Fett, as the template for this army. By the time of Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan Kenobi would arrive on Kamino and be informed that the Republic's new army had 200,000 units ready, with 1 million more on the way. The term unit tends to be associated with a single individual clone, which would have to have meant that the clone army was 1.2 million in total. The term unit tends to be associated with a single individual clone, which would have to have mean the clone army as a whole was 1.2 million strong. More clones would be added as the war continued, however. During the Clone Wars episode, Senate Murders, the Republic Senate fiercely debated adding an additional creation of 5 million more clone troopers. One of the main arguments being the financial burden this would have had on the Republic. This bill would ultimately be passed after a few senators were murdered. So it would seem that the clone army had only 6.2 million members serving on the battlefield as security and in the thousands of Republic ships. This number is obviously very small for a war that is supposed to be spread throughout thousands of systems in the galaxy. Because of this, many argue the term unit doesn't actually refer to a single clone, but to maybe represent a squad or a whole battalion of clone. A clone cadet squad would have had 5 members, while a military squad would have had 9, led by a sergeant. A battalion would have had 576 troopers. If the term unit actually meant a cadet squad, then this 1.2 million number would actually translate to 6 million clones. But for a military squad, this would be double, since it's 9 troopers led by a sergeant, making the total 12 million. If we go by a battalion, then this number equals to over 691 million clone soldiers. Many fans like to go with the last number, as it does make a lot more sense, since the clones had to serve so many roles in the Republic's navy. But if they did have this many initially, why would creating an order for another 5 million more clones be such a debated topic in the Senate? Regardless of which number you prefer, we still have the idea here that the clone army was severely outnumbered by the droid armies of the Separatist Alliance. These clones were extremely capable and well-trained soldiers that regularly defeated massive amounts of battle droids, many averaging dozens of kills before they themselves are killed in battle. In Legends, Palpatine secretly ordered a new creation of clones, Sparty clones, which can grow much faster than a regular clone trooper. They were quickly deployed at the Battle of Coruscant and were able to replenish the clone army. Regardless, we canonically had less than 1 billion clone troopers fighting in the Clone Wars. It's really hard to imagine that a mere 6 million clones would be enough to sustain a war like this. Here on Earth, we have individual nations with over 1 million soldiers in their respective militaries. For example, the United States has over 2 million, and China has over 3 million in both active and reserve. And we obviously have millions more throughout the rest of the world. I think the 691 million clone trooper number would make the most sense, but this number isn't really supported that well, especially when we have a case like the Senate justifying creating a mere 5 million more soldiers to add to the military. This makes me assume that the clone army itself only had several million members during the war. Otherwise, 5 million more soldiers wouldn't be that much of a burden. So maybe there's a middle ground here. Maybe the clones had like a few tens of millions, which I think makes the most sense given the information we have access to and the scale of the war itself. So all in all, I believe the clone army exists in the low tens of millions. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my assessment here, or is there something that I missed? Please be sure to leave your thoughts down below, and feel free to subscribe if you're new to this channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.